What's going on, Detroit Lions fans? Welcome back, Detroit Den 313 with Steve. Hey, this morning I told you guys I had to start doing some research on some quarterbacks. I have zero faith in Nate Sudfeld in an emergency situation to carry any type of responsibility for this Detroit Lions team. I can't watch him play football no more. Now, I told you this morning I was going to dedicate some time and look up some other options at quarterback, regional options. Guys, I'm not going to be talking about trading for Patrick Mahomes or signing Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or anything crazy. I think all of the names I have on this list are reasonable. It might take a trade. It might take a little luck. It might take a little patience if we really have to dive into it. When it comes to Nate Sudfeld, and I've heard all the stuff in training camp about how he's taken a step, he looks better, he's one QB2. I'm not giving quarterback two to Hendon Hooker yet. I can't do that. I haven't seen enough. What I have seen, I've liked, but I can't make Hendon Hooker quarterback two just because Nate Sudfeld was ass. I can't just give it to him on that reason. I want Hendon Hooker to earn quarterback two. I want him to earn that role. I don't think he's done that yet. I think he's on a nice path. He had a nice drive. He got hurt. I know he technically played two drives, but he came the first drive, he was 1 for 1 on with 1 yard passing. Like we can just scratch that and say the second drive he put together was nice, but I can't just give him the job of quarterback two on this depth chart. I think he's got to earn it. And again, he's on the right track. He's going to be okay. He's a rookie, essentially. He's figuring it out. His first NFL game was last night, and he was playing with third stringers, and he was playing against third stringers. I'd like to see him get some more reps with the twos, but if something happens to Jared Goff and he has to miss anywhere between 3 to 6 games, we're in trouble. If Nate Sudfeld's a guy, we're in big trouble. We're talking Super Bowl aspirations. And if something happens, Jared Goff gets banged up, we don't have a contingency plan like we did last year with Teddy Bridgewater, and everyone had a warm, fuzzy feeling. I'm not saying I'm panicking. I just want to have a little comfortability to know that if Jared Goff even has to miss one game, I have a guy who can come in there and win. I don't have that feeling with Nate Sudfeld. I don't have it at all. I never have. I've never thought he was a good quarterback. I never understood how he's been in the NFL. I'm not trying to be mean. The last couple of months, I've really tried to find a bright side when it comes to a player that I don't really enjoy watching. I can't find a bright side with Nate Sudfeld. I just can't. So what I've done today is I have looked at every single team's depth chart at the quarterback position. And I found some names that are very interesting and I think would really just give us a warm, cozy feeling. And this is not for a 17-game stretch that we would need these quarterbacks if something happens. We're talking like maybe a handful of games. Like that's the worst case scenario for me. I'm not trying to put anything out in the ether, but the easiest option is Ryan Tannehill, formerly of the Tennessee Titans, still a free agent. Very familiar with Ryan Tannehill. He's mobile. He can move a little bit. Sometimes his decision making is just ass cheeks, though. He's got to get better at decision making. When he was drafted by Miami, he didn't really get a fair shot. The Miami was kind of in a dumpster of a rebuild at the time, so it wasn't really a fair shot for Ryan Tannehill. So what he did was he said, "Hey, I'm going to go to Tennessee. They got a guy in Marcus Mariota who is struggling. I think I can go in there and compete with them. I think the leash is getting shorter and shorter for Marcus Mariota. I think by whatever week I could be the starter." And Ryan Tannehill ended up being right. He ended up being the starter for the Tennessee Titans, got him to the AFC Championship game a few years ago, had a couple good seasons, but sometimes he just makes some boneheaded plays. But he's available. So when I look at Tannehill, the question I'm going to ask with all these quarterbacks, can he win you a football game? Can he win 3-4 football games for you if Jared Goff gets hurt? I think he can. I think Ryan Tannehill could win you a couple games if you have the pieces around him, which the Detroit Lions do. This should be a good scenario for a lot of these quarterbacks that I'm going to be talking today, because you come to Detroit, you have weapons. You have an offensive line. You got guys you can get the ball to. You don't have to be the guy. You just have to be a guy. Don't be the reason we win. Just don't be the reason we lose. That's all I would be asking out of anybody I'm mentioning on this list. Ryan Tannehill, probably the easiest option since he's a free agent. Everyone else on this list, I said it's going to take a little luck, a little time, and a little patience because we'll have to see what happens with cuts. But I was mainly focusing on teams that were carrying 4 quarterbacks, thinking they're probably only going to carry 3 on their active roster. Most teams I don't feel are going to carry 4 quarterbacks on their 53-man roster. So when I looked at the New England Patriots, they have Oh gosh, I'm drawing blanks now. They have the kid from Tennessee, Joe Milton, and Drake May that they just drafted. Those are two of their quarterbacks. And then also on their team, they have Jacoby Brissett, Bailey Zappi. I think one of them is going to get cut. Again, I don't think a team is going to carry four quarterbacks. One of those would get cut. If I had my preference out of those two, it would be Jacoby Brissett. I don't know what it is. I'm just not high on Bailey Zappi. And I know he shredded us a couple years ago when we played New England, but I just look at Jacoby Brissett, kind of bounced around the league, been a solid backup. He kind of reminds me of Teddy Bridgewater. Maybe not as much experience under his belt because Teddy was pretty good for a while. But when I look at Jacoby Brissett, I think there's a guy that could come in, win you 4 or 5 games if you need him. Like it might not be sexy, but I mean, he's bounced around. I remember him with New England. He was with the Colts, currently with the Patriots. He's been on some other teams too. But if I had to choose between those two, Bailey Zappi, Jacoby Brissett, give me Jacoby. And I don't know if he's going to be the guy that gets cut or if it'll be Bailey. So if we have to kind of play the patience game, like I said, maybe we have to give up a 6th, 7th round pick to get him to give me that warm, fuzzy feeling. I'm okay with that. A 6th or 7th round pick to just, hey, I got my quarterback too. He can kind of carry the pail for a little bit if I need him to. Hopefully we don't even have to cross that bridge, but out of those two, give me Jacoby. Next on my list from the Cleveland Browns, who currently have, I know Deshaun Watson is their starter, and their backup is, let me look real quick, bear with me. Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, who's on my list. Jameis Winston, Tyler Huntley, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the kid from UCLA who was pretty good last year in the preseason. Those three, who would get cut? I don't know. I have no idea. I guess I have to start paying attention and watching some more preseason games. But out of those three names, I might go with Jameis Winston just because he's been a starter in the league, former Heisman Trophy winner, kind of gets a little reckless, but he's got a cannon. And again, I'm only talking a handful of games here. We have the weapons. We have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, a solid running game, Jameson Williams, best offensive line in the NFL. Just don't be the reason we lose, Jameson and Jamo. That would be a tongue twister for a while if we did sign that. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I thought he looked pretty good in the preseason last year. I thought maybe a team would trade for him this past offseason. It hasn't happened yet. Tyler Huntley he fell into the situation that we're talking about when Lamar Jackson got hurt when he was with the Ravens a few years ago. So these are guys with, 2 of them have experience. The other one has a lot of upside. So for me, I'm probably just going to take the experience because I think that's more important. I'm not looking to build a quarterback up. We have Hendon Hooker, who I think just needs a year to sit, watch, learn, get some practice reps, that kind of stuff. But we'll see what happens with Hendon. I'm not going to keep harping on that. I'm just kind of talking about a contingency plan. So out of those 3 names from Cleveland, let me know who you guys like. I'm going with Jameis Winston. Next, I got a guy that a lot of us should be familiar with, kind of a journeyman. I think he could be a solid player. And I'm talking Case Keenum with the Atlanta. I'm sorry, he's not with the Atlanta Falcons. He is with Houston. I kind of tipped my hand there for who I'm going to be talking about next. Case Keenum from Houston, played with Minnesota. Like, this is another guy who's just kind of bounced around quite a bit, but can he come in and win you a couple games? Yeah. Looking at the Houston Texans depth chart, obviously they have CJ Stroud. Davis Mills is their backup. He's pretty solid. And then the other 2 quarterbacks, Case Keenum listed as the 3rd string quarterback, and Tim Boyle, who we're familiar with, Lions fans. I don't want anything to do with Tim Boyle. Case Keenum, I think he'll probably make the Houston's team. So we're probably looking at another trade scenario there. Again, if I have to give up a 6th, 7th round pick to get a quarterback to just kind of give me a warm and fuzzy, I'm all for it. I don't want anything to do with Tim Boyle. But next on my list, obviously I kind of tipped my hand with the Atlanta Falcons. Taylor Heineke. He's getting paid. He's getting I think somewhere around $8 million a year to be a backup quarterback. Like, that's a pretty solid gig there. So Taylor Heineke, I remember when he was with Washington, he played pretty solid. Again, guys, we're just talking emergency situation. We're just talking what ifs. So let me pull up Atlanta's depth chart real quick and just look at that. Bear with me for a second. If I can find it, there they are. Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix, and then they have Taylor Heineke listed as their 3rd string quarterback, and Nathan Rourke, who I'm not very familiar with. So who's probably going to get cut there? My bet would be Nathan Rourke out of the University of Ohio. Go Bobcats. But I don't think teams are carrying 4 quarterbacks. If you had to be honest, Taylor Heineke might get a roster spot, but do they want to be paying their third string quarterbacks $7-8 million a year? I'm not sure, guys. That's all the names I have. I think, again, realistic options. I'm not saying, hey, let's go out and sign Tom Brady. Let's bring him out of retirement. I'm not saying, hey, let's call Peyton or Eli Manning, see what they're up to. That's pretty unreasonable. All right. It's not going to happen. We could talk about, I heard someone mention Ryan Fitzpatrick. Maybe 3-4 years ago, but he's been retired for a little while. If I had to look at an option like that to bring out of retirement, screw it. I might as well just say Cam Newton, but I don't think that's a realistic option either. Kind of out of the league. I know he kind of wants to get back in, but hey, so does Colin Kaepernick, and that just ain't happened, guys. So leave it in the comments. Let me know out of those names that I talked about: Ryan Tannehill, Jacoby Brissett, Jameis Winston, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Tyler Huntley, Case Keenum, Taylor Heineke, and Bailey Zappi. Ryan Tannehill as well. Kind of threw in Cam Newton. That was a flyer. Wasn't even really on my notes, but just kind of popped in my head when I mentioned Ryan Fitzpatrick of quarterbacks who might have a little juice left, but I'm not really interested in Cam. I think there's better options out there. Leave it in the comments. Let me know if there's another quarterback you think we might have a realistic shot at. Stick around, hit that like button, guys. I'll be back later with another show.